101.1, The Answer, Doc Washburn Show continues, where you can sound off and talk back at 501-401-1011. I got a lot of stuff I got to get to, but as is my wont, I will start with something big that no one else is telling you about. Joint statement on establishment of the U.S.-Indonesia Major Defense Cooperation Partnership. This is dated today. It's got our flag and it's got their flag at the top of this letterhead. I'm going to tell you why this is important. I'm not wasting your time. The U.S. Secretary of War and Indonesian Minister of Defense announced the establishment of the Major Defense Cooperation Partnership between the United States and Indonesia. The announcement reflects Indonesia's important role in promoting regional stability and underscores the strength and potential of the bilateral defense relationship. Now, why is that important? Well, I'll tell you. And this is a guy we've quoted here before, John A. Conrad V. He is the CEO of gcaptain.com, the world's most trafficked maritime news website in the whole world. This guy's really sharp. He says President Trump remains laser focused on securing the world's choke points. The Strait of Malacca is unequivocally more important than the Strait of Hormuz. Did you know this? I didn't know this. On one side of the Strait of Malacca is Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand. On the other side is Indonesia. Okay, well, that sounds like a big deal. Thank you, John A. Conrad V, for bringing this to our attention. And to quote our president, thank you for your attention to this matter. I mean, well, no, look, we go back a few weeks ago to when John A. Conrad V kind of wrote an article through a series of, a thread over on X explaining his theory of what he thought the president was doing in regard to the Strait of Hormuz, and it made sense. And again, when you're the CEO of the maritime news website that is getting more views than any other maritime news website in the world, I guess it shouldn't be a surprise that the president brings you into the Oval Office from time to time to get your advice among his working group of people whose advice he listens to for maritime issues. So that's a really big deal. Now, I want to take you back over the weekend. We've got some serious audio clips. Vice President J.D. Vance was at the end of the negotiations. He had some things to say. J.D. Vance, Saturday night announcement, cut one, please.
Well, good morning, everybody. And let me say a couple of notes of appreciation. First of all, to the Prime Minister of Pakistan and to Field Marshal Munir, who were both incredible hosts. And whatever shortcomings of the negotiation, it wasn't because of the Pakistanis, who did an amazing job and really tried to help us and the Iranians bridge the gap and get to a deal. We have been at it now for 21 hours, and we've had a number of substantive discussions with the Iranians. That's the good news. The bad news is that we have not reached an agreement, and I think that's bad news for Iran much more than it's bad news for the United States of America. So we go back to the United States having not come to an agreement. We've made very clear what our red lines are, what things we're willing to accommodate them on, and what things we're not willing to accommodate them on. And we've made that as clear as we possibly could, and they have chosen not to accept our terms.
Okay, we got a couple more clips before we play them. I was very concerned on the lead up to the negotiations. I did not at all like the fact that we were sending the vice president of the United States into what I believe is basically a country that's hostile to us, a country that, not too many weeks ago, violent protesters were attacking our embassy, and U.S. Marines had to shoot them. I was very concerned about that. But hindsight being 2020, there are some folks who are talking about what it means that President Trump chose to send Vice President J.D. Vance along with the guys who had been negotiating with Iran, Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff. And when I read what they said, it was very edifying, very compelling, and I will share that with you. Anyway, let's go to J.D. Vance, Saturday night, cut 3, please. Cut 2. What am I thinking? I don't know math anymore.
Questions?
So, Nick Robertson from CNN. Precisely what have they rejected here? Can you help us understand it a little bit?
Well, I won't go into all the details because I don't want to negotiate in public after we negotiated for 21 hours in private. But the simple fact is that we need to see an affirmative commitment that they will not seek a nuclear weapon, and they will not seek the tools that would enable them to quickly achieve a nuclear weapon. That is the core goal of the President of the United States, and that's what we've tried to achieve through these negotiations. Again, their nuclear program, such as it is, the enrichment facilities that they had before, they've been destroyed. But the simple question is, do we see a fundamental commitment of will for the Iranians not to develop a nuclear weapon, not just now, not just 2 years from now, but for the long term? We haven't seen that yet. We hope that we will.
Yeah. He took about 3 questions. And a lot of people, again, trying to wrap their minds around what's going on here. And somebody said today, I wish I could remember who, Trump is not a cartoon character. Has he made decisions which we disagree with, decisions which we lament? Yeah, sure. Has he made decisions like that in the context of dealing with Iran? I can't think of any. I mean, it is only natural for us to think, why don't you go ahead and get this over with? But General Jack Keane, retired 4-star, the go-to military expert for Fox News, was asked about that. And of course, he would have preferred things to go more quickly. And yet he said, the president is privy to intel that even I, as a retired 4-star, am not privy to. And we just got to see how this plays out. Yeah. Oh, the guy who said Trump is not the cartoon character, Jesus Enrique Rosas, calls himself the body language guy. He's an opinionated Venezuelan who lives in Europe. And I've recently discovered him. And I'm thankful that he's either writing in English or X provides a translation, because it is powerful. And we will get to what he is saying about Trump and about why he sent Vance and why that was so important. That is all coming up. Anyway, let me go to our next Q&A. J.D. Vance, Saturday night. This is from Jen Griffin from Fox, who we're not fans of. She's a big lib. Pete Hegseth called her out, even though they were co-employees at Fox News for years. He's like, you know what, Jen, you were always one of the worst ones. just in her face at one of his first press conferences as Secretary of War. Anyway, but she went to Pakistan dutifully like everybody else. J.D. Vance, Saturday night. Question from Jen Griffin, cut 3, please.
Jen.
Was there a framework on anything? And also, did the Iranian frozen assets come up? And did you reach any conclusions on those frozen assets?
We talked about all those issues, Jen, and we talked about a number of issues beyond that. And so certainly those things came up. But again, we just could not get to a situation where the Iranians were willing to accept our terms. I think that we were quite flexible. We were quite accommodating. The president told us, you need to come here in good faith and make your best effort to get a deal. We did that. And unfortunately, we weren't able to make any headway.
Okay. He doesn't sound happy. The vice president does not sound happy. And would you be to go all the way around the world and spend 21 hours across from these lunatics, these murderous maniacs, beating your head against the wall for 21 hours? I don't think so. I mean, and, you know, the fact that they get to stay in a 5-star hotel and they get the best cuisine Pakistan is able to whip up, that doesn't really take the edge off of it. Even for me, and I'm a big food fan. I wonder if the baklava is as good in Pakistan as it is along the Mediterranean, because Colonel Conrad Reynolds said, until you've had baklava like in Greece, Turkey, or the Middle East, you haven't really had baklava. And I'm like, dutifully noted. Because I really like the baklava at tzatziki's myself, but I don't have anything else to compare it to. Anyway, tangent? Who, me? Get off at a tangent? What are you talking about? All right, before we go to the break, let us go to J.D. Vance, Saturday night Q&A, cut 4, please.
Preston.
Mr. Vice President, how often did you communicate with President Trump throughout the negotiations? There were reports that there were multiple rounds, where there were breaks in between negotiations. How often did you communicate with the president throughout those rounds, and what was he saying as you were going through these negotiations that you said fell short?
Yeah, obviously we were talking to the president consistently. I don't know how many times we talked to him, a half dozen times, a dozen times over the past 21 hours. We obviously also talked to Admiral Cooper, to Pete, to Marco, to the entire national security team. We talked to Scott Bessent a number of times. So look, we were constantly in communication with the team because we were negotiating in good faith. And we leave here with a very simple proposal, a method of understanding that is our final and best offer. We'll see if the Iranians accept it. Thank you.
By the way, I hope you figured out by now that President Trump has not announced that we are closing the Strait of Hormuz. We're just preventing anybody that wants to get in to or out of Iranian ports. We're preventing the Iranian ships and anybody who wants to deal with them. Other than that, we're good. And it has been pointed out, maritime maps of the world, once that was announced, hundreds of seagoing vessels all of a sudden made U-turns and started headed to the Gulf of America and the Caribbean to do business with the oil concerns of the southeastern U.S. and Venezuela. So it's a good thing that Trump took out Maduro before he hit Iran. But anyway, a little bit about why he sent J.D. Vance. That's coming up as the Doc Washer Show continues. Little Rock's premier talk station. Nobody else gives you this. 101.1 The Answer. 101.1, The Answer. Doc Washer Show continues. Sound off and talk back. 501-401-1011. Jesus Enrique Rosas over there on X says, here's what drives people nuts on both sides. Trump is not the cartoon character, not the genius his fans worship, not the idiot his critics need him to be. He's just a stubborn, calculating guy who creates chaos the way a magician creates misdirection. While you're distracted watching the fireworks, he's already 3 iterations ahead with furious execution. And he doesn't bluff the way people think he bluffs. He just couldn't care less about the part of diplomacy where everyone pretends to be polite while lying to each other's faces. He skips that step entirely, which looks unhinged. If you're used to the old choreography, but it's genuinely disorienting if you're the guy on the other side of the table who had a whole manipulation strategy mapped out. Iran found this out the hard way. What gets lost in so much noise is that Trump doesn't actually want war. He sees it as the ugly price tag on a bigger purchase. His math on Iran is cold, but not complicated. 90 million people living between poverty and the lower middle class, ruled by an elite whose entire business model depends on keeping them there. The nukes were the urgent priority, but his bet is that removing the lid will let Iranians rebuild the way Germany did after the rubble cleared after World War II. You can argue whether that math checks out, but it's not the reasoning of someone who just wants to watch things explode. Obviously, Iran isn't the only file on his desk. Venezuela already got the treatment. Cuba's probably next. Syria hasn't been forgotten either, no matter how quiet things look. By this point, few people should be surprised that he circles back to unfinished business with the patience of a guy who knows he's holding better cards and just needs to wait for overconfident tyrants to overplay theirs. The part his opponents keep getting wrong is treating Make America Great Again like a bumper sticker. Wrong. It's a doctrine now. It's always been a doctrine. Whether you love it or find it terrifying, MAGA is the very operating system behind his relentless drive. This, not just some random pixelated banner which will fade away in the next couple of presidential terms. No, this is the right stuff that will outlast the man who built it. Okay, again, that is Jesus Enrique Rosas, the body language guy. Now, about Vance. He said, imagine you're about to fire an employee who's been stealing from you for years. You don't send in the guy from legal with a stack of complaints. No, you send in the nicest manager in the building, the one everybody likes, the one who always gives second chances. And you tell him, go sit with them, see if they'll stop. But you already know they won't stop. Then why bother? Well, because now the entire office watched the nice guy try, and the entire office watched them spit in his face while pocketing a stapler before ducking out early. That's what Trump just did with J.D. Vance. Vance is the most diplomatic voice in the administration. Iran literally requested Vance by name. He represents a faction inside the U.S. government that genuinely wanted to exhaust every option before escalation. Democrats, Republicans, and a huge chunk of the American public share that instinct. So Trump sent Vance, not because he thought Iran would fold, because he needed the world to watch Iran refuse the one guy everybody agreed was fair. And now, nobody can say the U.S. sent hawks to sabotage peace. Nobody can say Iran wasn't given a real chance. The man who wanted peace the most walked into that room and Tehran flipped the table with the cameras rolling. 20 minutes later, Trump announced a full naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. And if you still had any doubt about what Iran actually wants, they told you out loud at the negotiating table. They refused to stop funding Hamas. They refused to stop funding Hezbollah. They refused to stop funding the Houthis. They refused to stop enriching uranium, and they refused to open the strait without charging a $2 million toll per ship in crypto like some dark web scammer. They didn't just reject peace. They handed the world the signed confession that the regime's real priorities are nukes, terrorism, and extortion, in that order. Iran didn't lose the negotiation. Iran lost the argument. Man, that's brilliant. Jesus Enrique Rosas, the body language guy over on X. I'm Doc Washburn. We're just getting started on a Monday. There's so much to get to on Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1, The Answer. One 101.1, The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues, where you can sound off and talk back at 501-401-1011. Okay, we're going to have to talk about this. Did you see or have you seen the drawing that President Trump put on his Truth Social, which seems to show him as a Christ-like figure? Yeah. A lot of people very upset about that. Our friend Jan Morgan had some things to say about it. And she's like, look, I've supported Donald J. Trump since 2016. And I'm very thankful. He's done a lot of great things. He continues to do a lot of great things. But this right here is really bad. And you have to be willing to call out your own. And I wanted to share her Facebook post with you, but now that President Trump has taken it down, she's got an updated one. And well, I guess I should do that one too. Yeah, that's better than nothing. Let me share with you what Jan is saying about this, and then we can move on, because I just want to share with you what Jan Morgan is saying here locally in Arkansas, and what Megan Basham is saying out there on X. Megan Basham wrote the wonderful book called Shepherds for Sale, about how liberal money is influencing some big name pastors. So she's legit. Anyway, Jan Morgan, update: Trump deleted the post from his page after massive backlash from his own supporters. Instead of walking it back, Donald Trump defended it, saying it was meant to depict him as a doctor making people better. That explanation isn't calming concerns. It's exactly why the concerns exist. He's not just a man posting memes. He's the president of the United States. That office demands discipline, restraint, and a level of seriousness worthy of leading the free world. When messaging becomes erratic, self-glorifying, or distracts from real leadership, it doesn't just reflect on him, it reflects on the country. And here's the part no one wants to say out loud. If the people around him are unwilling or unable to elevate the standard, then they are failing him and failing the office. And if they are trying but being ignored, that's an even bigger problem. This isn't about blind loyalty or blind opposition. It's about whether we still have the courage to expect discipline from those in power. And she's got a little screenshot of her earlier Facebook post, which said, this post shared on President Trump's Truth Social account crosses a line that should never be crossed. It is indefensible. And a quote from Matthew 23:12, whoever exalts himself will be humbled. She also had the quote about, you shall have no other gods before me. Okay, so interesting. Megan Basham over on X responded to the picture that looks like Trump as a Christ figure, saying, I don't know if the president thought he was being funny or if he's under the influence of some substance or what possible explanation he could have for this outrageous blasphemy, but he needs to take this down immediately and ask for forgiveness from the American people and then from God. So a guy did a quote tweet on Megan Basham, a guy named Matt Carr, who is the pastor of a Presbyterian church in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I'm familiar with this guy because he used to be in Panama City, Florida. I don't think I ever met him, but he got into some kind of discussion about me, of all people, on Twitter a couple of years back, and said that I had been a grifter from way back. And I didn't realize that working for a living for a radio station was the same thing as grifting, but apparently to some men of the cloth, and I use the term loosely, it is. Anyway, So Matt Carr, preacher out of Charlotte, is responding to Megan Basham saying, appreciate this from Meg, but please keep in mind, she has vociferously attacked Christian leaders and accused them of being shepherds for sale, specifically because they've been honest to one degree or another about exactly who this man was and is, talking about Trump. Well, then there's the response from the great podcaster Adam Page, whose podcast is We Bear Witness podcast. I got to follow that on X. Anyway, Adam Page says, if any never Trumper thinks anyone who voted for Trump is shocked out of their socks, he acts like an egomaniacal non-Christian. They aren't reading or they aren't listening. There's a huge difference in a diehard MAGA and Christians who know that Trump was a better option than Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, or Hillary Clinton by miles. Hello. Look, here's the deal. I spent the first half hour of my show talking about what a brilliant job I think President Trump is doing vis-a-vis Iran. That doesn't mean that I can neglect what I think is my duty to address this issue of Trump, the Trump as Jesus picture that he put on his Truth social media account. You got to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. And the fact that I agree with my friend Jan Morgan and I agree with my friend Meg Basham about how outrageous and inappropriate what the president did doesn't change anything at all about how thankful I am that he's in the Oval Office instead of Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris was dead set on turning us into Zimbabwe. Know what I'm saying? And I'll go back for just a minute. I got to Little Rock, Arkansas, a place I'd never seen before. They flew me and offered me a job across town. I auditioned for the job in May and June of 2014 by remote from my little home studio in Panama City, Florida. My first day on the air, the new job was July 7th, 2014. We were past the primaries, but months before the 2014 election, more than 2 years before the 2016 presidential election. And some of my listeners were really demoralized because they believed with all their heart that something they dreaded was going to happen. And that was that Hillary Clinton was going to be the next president. And there's not a thing we could do about it. So they didn't say it, but I guess they were assuming that Jeb Bush was going to be a Republican nominee and he would roll over for her. And if he had been the nominee, I have no doubt that he would have rolled over for her. But anyway, be that as it may, I think a lot of people reached out in prayer and pleaded with the Lord to please protect us from a Hillary Clinton presidency. And in his grace and mercy, the Lord did protect us. So I think the same thing happened in 2024. People had a dread because, hey, I I differ from a great many conservative influencers, conservative people on radio and TV. I'm one of the people who still believes 2020 was stolen. And I've never denied it. And so I didn't see what would keep them from stealing 2024. And so I was one of those people praying that the Lord would not allow us to do that, or would not allow them to do that. So I'm getting ahead of myself. So now, why do I say all this? Why am I going into such detail after spending the first half hour of the show talking about what a brilliant job the president's doing in Iran, and then in this segment expressing serious concern about what I see to be a sacrilegious image that the president put up on his social media. Well, most of Jan Morgan's comments that I saw from her original Facebook post were people saying, yeah, you know, I'm a big supporter of the president too, but this really bothers me. Then every once in a while, you'd have somebody saying like, well, I guess you'd rather have Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in there, huh? And I'm like, so you're missing the point entirely. And it takes me back to something that I've said before. I haven't said it in a long time publicly, but here's the deal. She can explain it to you, but there's no way in the world she can understand it for you. I mean, that's the deal. And so I am thankful that I came across something here from this guy I follow, C3C3 on X, that maybe will put what the president did with the Jesus picture into context as far as the fake outrage from the liberals. He said, never forget Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer mocking the Holy Eucharist. Where was the outrage? But Trump posts a meme, and it's all a scam, the outrage. The governor of Michigan pretended to be giving a wafer to a young woman, and they're just mocking the whole thing. That was not a problem. But of course, for those of us, oh, wait, okay, hold up. Breaking news from Bill Malugin at Fox News. This is posted 15 minutes ago. U.S. Representative Eric Swalwell announces he will resign from Congress. Now, over the weekend, I think it was last night, he's like, hey, I'm bowing out of the governor's race. But see, all these libs who were jumping on him about what mainstream media in California says has been known for years and nobody did anything about it. And all of a sudden, they coordinated this thing. Oh, no, you got to drop out of the governor's race. None of them wanted him to resign from Congress. So they still needed his vote there. See, they got a jungle primary in California. That means whoever's running for governor, the top two people, like if you got 8, 9, 10 people running for governor, the top two people might only get like 21 and 22% because you got so many people. Well, those are the two people that go to the runoff. It's a jungle primary, not a Republican primary over here and a Democrat primary over there, like Arkansas and most states, jungle primary. So the concern was there's so many Democrats in the race for governor that what if the top two people were Republicans? And so the runoff would be between two Republicans. And so they were clamping down hard on Swalwell. You got to get out of this. And Swalwell was telling them to take a flying leap in themselves, if I may use the term present company. And so they're like, oh, you're going to tell us to take a long walk off a short pier? knowing that we know everything about you? Yeah. Have fun with this, pal. We're the Democrat Party. We don't play. So that's what happened. Now he's announcing he's going to resign from Congress. And the allegations against this guy are pretty daunting. And we got to get into that. And we will. All right, Doc Washburn Show continues. Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1 The Answer. One oh one point one, The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues, or you can sound off and talk back, 501-401-1011. So coming up, we're going to have more stuff on Swalwell. And the question, which has to be addressed, was there a Jeffrey Epstein 9/11 connection? Again, no, I give you stuff nobody else has given you because it's my duty. And because, as my producers pointed out before, well, gee, Doc, it's a lot easier for you to be in this stuff down in the weeds 24/7 because you don't have a life. And I told him those are hurty words, but he continues unabated. So what are you going to do? Anyway, anytime I get the guy on the other side of the glass laughing, I feel like I've accomplished something. Catherine Herridge, says, as of Sunday, the peace talks in Pakistan, led by Vice President J.D. Vance, had failed. President Trump now ordered the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Well, not really, Catherine. And again, Catherine Herridge, one of the greatest investigative reporters of our time, guarantee has a higher IQ than I have. But specifically, the president has ordered the blockade of the Iranian ports. The rest of the Strait of Hormuz is fine. Anyway, she says, on the eve of the ceasefire, I spoke with former CENTCOM commander, retired four-star General Joe Votel. I believe that when we're reporting a significant national security matters, that our standards for expert commentary must be at their highest. It's important to hear from military voices who have lived these decisions, not those for whom it is academic or hypothetical. Retired General Votel made three main points. First, the strategic Strait of Hormuz will ultimately be reopened either through negotiations or through force, which would require U.S. ground troops. I'm not so sure I agree with that. If we're blocking, and maybe he didn't have access to this when she talked to him 48 hours ago, whatever. But if we're blocking their ports with our vessels, then they would have to hit us. But anyway, number two, control of Karg Island, Iran's primary oil export terminal, would also require ground forces on a limited basis. General Votel warned the deployment of ground forces would significantly shift resources away from other priorities. Finally, number three, Votel concluded Iran sees this fight as existential, given its track record, including a nearly decade-long war with Iraq. General Votel warned that the regime has an incredible ability to, quote, absorb pain, unquote, and the U.S. must not underestimate this reality. Well, okay, play devil's advocate for a second. I wonder if she asked him about President Trump's statement right before the negotiations began between J.D. Vance, Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff, and the Iranian lunatics in Pakistan. President Trump's statement that the only reason those Iranian negotiators were still alive was because he had allowed them to stay alive to do the negotiation. If you keep on taking out the guys at the top of the organizational chart, you keep on taking them out, I'm not sure how much pain they can absorb. And again, I have no doubt Catherine Herridge and General Votel have higher IQs than I have. I'm just kind of looking at stuff, you know? So we got some Swalwell stuff coming up, and we got some Jeffrey Epstein 9/11 stuff coming up. I don't think it's the kind of stuff that all these Democrats calling for more Epstein files are going to want to know about. Especially the ones who already know. I don't think they're going to want to hear about it. And I certainly don't think they're going to want you to hear about it. Again, Swalwell, 32 minutes ago, out there on X, announces he's resigning. And he's deeply sorry for this, that, and the other thing. More coming up at the top of the hour news. Doc Washer Show continues, Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1, The Answer. 101.1 The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues where you can sound off and talk back. 501-401-1011. Just trying to squeeze it all in between now and 6 o'clock. So you have Pope Leo the 14th out there on X. Y'all want to listen up to this. Here's what the Pope is saying. You can't make this up. Here's what he's saying. Communion between Christians and Muslims takes shape under the mantle of Our Lady of Africa. Here in Algeria, that's where he's visiting today. Here in Algeria, the maternal love of Lala Mariam gathers everyone as children within our rich diversity and our shared aspiration for dignity, love, justice, and peace. In a world where division and wars sow pain and death, living in unity and peace is a compelling sign. #apostolic journey. So he is saying that Muslims and Christians are living in unity and peace, and they have communion under the mantle of Mary. Gentle listener, would it surprise you? And I'll get to Swalwell and I'll get to Epstein and 9/11. Gentle listener, would it surprise you if I were to share with you that there has been some pushback on the Pope's statement from this afternoon? A guy that I know quite well, who goes as Bones McKinney, says, when the head of your church, the so-called Holy Father, is clearly not a Christian, it may be time to rethink your certainty and the assertion that, quote, the Roman Catholic Church is the church Christ founded, unquote, because this is mind-numbing heresy. Yeah, it is, and it should. It is, and it should. So somebody asked, what is the legal penalty for Christian proselytizing in the country of Algeria? Well, it's a crime, 2 to 5 years imprisonment and fines of anywhere from, the equivalent would be $3,700 to $7,400 US dollars for religious leaders. But of course, I mean, in Muslim countries, regardless of what the legal penalty is, they can kill you. They can kill you. Let's see. Alexander Duncan says there's supposed to be division between Christians and false demonic ideologies like Islam. You are an antichrist. Now, again, this Pope has a Muslim prayer room in the Vatican. Just so you know. Because he's out there saying that that our war with Iran, we are wrong. That it's wrong what we're doing. Now, he won't say it's wrong that the Muslims are slaughtering Christians in Nigeria and Sudan and Congo. He won't say that's wrong. He won't say it's wrong that the Muslims are slaughtering Iranians in their own country by the thousands, by the tens of thousands. He won't say that's wrong. He won't come down on American politicians who are pro-abortion all 9 months for any reason whatsoever. He won't say that's wrong. I don't know if you know. If you're not a Catholic, you might not know. This Pope is an old Chicago guy. Most popes are not from the U.S. This Pope grew up in Chicago. He's a Democrat. He's a liberal Democrat. So he doesn't tend to have problems with things that most conservatives, most Christians would have a problem with. Okay? All right, now, I put this off for too long. Jeffrey Epstein and 9/11. This is some crazy stuff. And again, this is from Catherine Herridge, and Catherine Herridge, one of just the sterling investigative reporters of our time. She says, putting the plea deals, non-prosecution agreements, and non-disclosure deals to one side, I believe there are live issues in the Epstein case that can be pursued. She said, I recently reported on Jeffrey Epstein and his secret 9/11 Saudi connection. My investigation revealed emails from Epstein to at least one high-level Saudi government contact. The men discussed challenging legislation that opened the courthouse doors for the 9/11 families to sue Saudi Arabia over the September 11, 2001 attacks. Jeffrey Epstein boasted that he would enlist the help of President Obama's White House counsel, his then White House counsel for Obama, Catherine Rumler, who called him Uncle Jeffrey in her emails. He boasted to the Saudis he would enlist the help of President Obama's White House counsel, Catherine Rumler, and a high-profile Republican, former Solicitor General, former Whitewater Special Prosecutor Ken Starr, to launch a constitutional challenge. Epstein believed that a constitutional challenge to the Justice Against Sponsors of Terrorism Act would tie the matter up in legal knots for a decade. A Saudi embassy spokesperson confirmed receipt of our questions about the kingdom's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, but did not immediately comment. The estate of Jeffrey Epstein did not respond to our emails seeking comment, which included questions about whether Epstein had registered as an agent of a foreign government. Well, you have to. By law, you have to. But did Hunter Biden? I don't think so. You see where I'm going with this. In this case, Jeffrey Epstein was acting to advantage the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia at the expense of the September 11th families. A spokeswoman for Catherine Rumler, former White House counsel for President Obama, denied that she participated. Kenneth Starr died in 2022. He's not available. Let me give you Eric Swalwell's statement, his official statement that came out a few minutes ago. And by the way, did you know that the allegations are not just sexual harassment? They're rape allegations on this guy. That takes it a whole different place. Whole different place. As bad as sexual harassment is. No, I know. Allegations. That's why, allegedly allegations. It's like soup and sandwich. They can both go together, Soup and sandwich goes together like a horse and carriage. Wait, did I just do that on the air? Oh my goodness. Well, now I want to profusely apologize. I keep forgetting that a significant percentage of my radio listeners and a significant percentage of the people who watch the Facebook live stream are music lovers. That had to be sheer torment. I apologize profusely from the bottom of my heart, and I promise you, I will never do that again until next time. Here's Swalwell's statement on congressional resignation. Quote, I am deeply sorry to my family, staff, and constituents for mistakes and judgment I've made in my past. I will fight the serious false allegation made against me. Wait, just one? There's no S on the end of allegation? Really? I'll fight the serious false allegation made against me. Oh, wait a minute. Does that mean the rest of the allegations are not false? Hey-o! I mean, even young Tommy on the other side of the glass is like, oh, man, you're killing me here. Gee whiz. However, I must take responsibility and ownership for the mistakes I did make. Okay, wait a minute. Oh, no, you're right. He is a low IQ guy. Because you tend to say with these people in office, well, he's not stupid. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe there is something he's alluding to. No, this guy is pretty stupid. Because he's saying mistakes, plural, but allegations, singular. However, I must take responsibility and ownership for the mistakes I did make. I'm aware of efforts to bring an immediate expulsion vote against me and other members. Wait, against me and other members? Really? Expelling anyone in Congress without due process within days of an allegation being made is wrong. But it's also wrong for my constituents to have me distracted from my duties. Therefore, I plan to resign my seat in Congress. Oh, you plan to? Anytime soon? I will work with my staff in the coming days to ensure they are able, in my absence, to serve the needs of the good people of the 14th Congressional District. Yo, what's up? Does this mean Gavin Newsom gets to appoint his successor? Going from bad to worse. I called it. I'm going to call it right now. Going from bad to worse. Amazing. So we'll get to the allegations against Swalwell. And I mean, we just trying to squeeze everything in, and developments with Iran and the whole thing. Doc Washer Show continues. The Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1, The Answer. One 101.1 The Answer. Doc Washer Show continues. You can sound off and talk back. 501-401-1011. I was telling my producer during the break, I said, we're going to run out of show before we run out of stuff to talk about. This is flying by today. Anna Young, New York Post. California Representative Eric Swalwell slams sexual misconduct and rape allegations against him as he apologizes to his wife in the new video. Yeah, I think he probably need to do a little bit more than have a video. Apologize to your wife. I don't know. My guess is that the majority of people listening to the sound of my voice are either married or have been married. And if the allegations were this strong against you, are you thinking, well, I'll tell you what, yeah, I'll just do a public video apologizing to my wife, and that should kind of yeah, let's just kind of smooth things over. Maybe take her out to dinner. Oh, man. Anyway, embattled Representative Eric Swalwell on Friday night issued a full-throated denial of sexual misconduct and rape allegations leveled against him, calling them absolutely false while issuing an apology to his wife. For what? The allegations are false. What are you apologizing for? The then Democrat candidate for California governor said in a more than minute-long video on social media, these allegations of sexual assault are flat false. They're absolutely false. They did not happen. They've never happened, and I will fight them with everything I have. Now, I have seen the viral video. Everybody's got clothes on, but the viral video of Eric Swalwell on a bed in what looks like a big suite at a hotel with a woman, and they're frolicking. And oh, you saw that one? And then Ruben Gallego, who is now a U.S. Senator, I think from Arizona, was his campaign manager at the time. He's kind of in the edge of the video on the right, and in the left, in the distance, there's another female. Certainly didn't look like any assaults going on, but Swalwell's married, and that's not his wife, and they're kind of goofing around, having a good old time. So again, in the video, everybody's got clothes on, but still way inappropriate. Back to New York Post, because I digress. I'm going for a Nobel Prize for digressing. Swalwell, I can count on your vote, I know. Swalwell was forced to swat down scathing allegations of sexual misconduct brought by 4 women this past week now, including a former staffer who claims he raped her in 2024. In the video, the dad of 3 apologized to Brittany Watts, his wife of 9 years, saying he's made mistakes in judgment in my past. But those mistakes are between me and my wife, and to her, I apologize deeply for putting her in this position. Oh, he learned well from Bill Clinton. No, that's in our past, and we've dealt with it in our marriage and everything, and get out of my face. And you know, y'all, sometimes y'all make me feel like Al Pacino in The Godfather 3. They keep pulling me back. Swalwell then turned his attention to his constituents, apologizing if he had shaken their support for him, while confidently stressing that they, quote, know who I am, unquote. Well, see, that's a problem. Yeah, they do. Swalwell also blasted the timing of the allegations, insisting they came as he remains the front runner in his gubernatorial race. He also pointed to his courtroom record advocating for victims of sexual assault. Do you have to remind them at a time like this that you're a hypocrite? What the heck? He said, I do not suggest to you in any way that I'm perfect or that I'm a saint. For over 20 years, I've served the public as a city councilman, as a member of Congress, and as a prosecutor who went to court on behalf of victims, particularly on behalf of sexual assault victims. That's who I am and have always been. Well, let's look into that. I mean, how well do you know Harvey Weinstein? Come on. Ed Buck, how will you? I know you took money from Ed Buck. Ed Buck was a wealthy gay Democrat who was always seen with people like Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell, and donated a lot of money, but also would have young black male prostitutes over to his place and killed a couple of them. Shot him up with too much meth. And so he finally went to prison. And Swalwell knows who Ed Buck is because he accepted money from him. Swalwell's attorney, Elias Dabay, echoed the congressman's denials in an interview with CNN on Friday night, saying he categorically denies any wrongdoing, but admits to potential lapses in judgment. What does that mean? Everybody's had lapses in judgment. It's like, shoot, why did I eat lunch at that place? What was I thinking? I knew it took me 25 minutes to get through the drive-through last time. See, that's a lapse in judgment, not, cheating on your wife or something. The attorney questioned the legitimacy of some of the alleged victims' complaints, noting that their claims date back several years and they've supported Swalwell and even attended public events with them. Yeah, but see, the problem with this is that you've got all these liberal mainstream media reporters in California saying people have known about this for years. Okay, well, you're a reporter. It's a shame you don't have a job where you could kind of publicize this sort of thing. I mean, are you even serious right now? Oh, yeah, we've known about this for years. Really? And so you didn't report on it because, oh, yeah. It's just like with Al Gore all those years ago and the female masseuse at the hotel in Oregon and her fellow masseuses, or whatever the plural is, are like, don't, because he was trying to put moves on her. Allegedly. Yeah, don't say anything. Don't make a file a police report because, he's going to be running for president here and you don't want to, you don't want to goof that up. Yeah. In other words, take one for the team. Yeah, that's what's up. By the way, the great clandestine over in X says, looking at the big picture, it's now abundantly clear why the Democrats have been so against fracking, so against U.S. oil production. They didn't want the United States to become a self-sustaining energy powerhouse. Why? Because the Democrats are owned by foreign actors trying to destroy this nation. Yeah, you know about all those kids of the Iranian regime that are over here and they're on these visas and Marco Rubio is going to cancel the visas. Apparently, that was part of the Iran nuke deal that Obama pushed through. It wasn't a treaty. Couldn't have passed. Anyway, more coming up as the Doc Washer Show continues on Little Rock's premier talk radio station. 101.1, The Answer. 101.1 The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues, where you can sound off and talk back at 501-401-1011. This is fascinating to me. Yeah, this is political Stacy. Stacy is right, retired U.S. Navy, out there on X, saying Iran may not be winning on the battlefield, but they can legitimately claim one major strategic victory in this conflict. They successfully captured and taken full control of the Democrat Party. From foreign policy positions to domestic rhetoric, the alignment is hard to ignore anymore. The Democrat Party that once stood firmly against the world's leading state-sponsored terrorism now often echoes their talking points, defends their proxies, and hesitates to confront their aggression. It's not exaggeration, it's observable reality, and it's one of the most damaging self-inflicted wounds in modern American politics. Sadly true. Sadly true. And you got all these cardinals. They were on 60 Minutes last night, supporting your lefty pope out there. Peachy Keenan, great conservative columnist and podcaster, and a true Roman Catholic, talk about the cardinals that sat for the 60 Minutes interview. She said, Cardinal McElroy is the Joe Biden of Catholic bishops. Worse, he was very tight with Uncle Ted McCarrick, former cardinal, pretended not to know what McCarrick was up to when a whistleblower came forward in 2016. Then he blocked the credible allegations, all true, of raping going back for decades. Cardinal McElroy's promotion to cardinal was St. Francis's final FU to conservative Americans in the church. And don't get me started on stupid Kupich. No Catholic I know respects or likes these old lefties. Well, I mean, then you got a problem. You know, I go back to what the Bones McKinney character said there on X a little bit earlier in response to Pope Leo saying there is communion between Christians and Muslims under the mantle of Mary, and they can live in peace with each other. Bones McKinney said, when the head of your church, the so-called Holy Father, is clearly not a Christian, it may be time to rethink your certainty in the assertion that the Roman Catholic Church is the church Christ founded, because this is mind-numbing heresy. Oh, Governor J.B. Pritzker, Illinois, shaking hands with the Pope from Chicago, saying the Pope lifts his voice as part of a higher calling, one centered on peace and the preservation of human life. And the great Colonel Kurt Schlichter says, unless that human life is a baby. In response to Pope Leo talking about the communion between Christians and Muslims taking shape under the mantle of Our Lady, Mary, Mike Davis, Article 3 Project says, go visit the grave sites of the thousands of Christians slaughtered by Islamists. We don't live in unity. We never have for centuries. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, this is, we have a Roman Catholic who goes only by Renata over on X. She says, Pope Leo, I'm a Catholic and I have a request. Instead of playing dirty politics and attacking President Trump and his administration, please use your power of prayers and influence to stop the butchery of our children. Talk about the transgender surgeries, where they lop healthy body parts off of healthy kids. She says, God is watching and he's giving you a chance to redeem yourself. Do the right thing. He's not going to. He's a Democrat. He's not going to. Now, in response to people who are trying to defend the Pope, Some folks are posting an article from the Chicago Sun-Times from just a few months ago. Pope Leo helped shield clergy accused of abuse in Peru, abuse survivors allege. Survivors of clergy abuse are calling for an investigation into Pope Leo XIV during his tenure as Bishop of Chiclayo in Peru, alleging he played a role in covering up how priests and clerics accused of sexual assault were allowed to continue their roles in the Roman Catholic Church. Recordings of a meeting from last April between Reverend Giampiero Gambaro with Ana Maria Quispe Diaz and others accusing Peruvian clerics of assault revealed the man they accused had confessed to church officials years ago and in September was granted an honorable discharge. Chicago's Sun-Times reviewed a translated version of the recordings made public by the group. Well, how far back do you want to go? How far back do you want to go? The last pope that a lot of Protestants liked because he was politically conservative was John Paul II. A lot of us really liked the guy because along with Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher, he had a lot to do with bringing down the Soviet Union. And yet, when the pedophile priest scandal broke 25 years ago, and it came out the Bernard Cardinal Law, the cardinal over New England knew that priests were molesting kids, and he would just move them from one parish to another and never go to law enforcement and never warn parents. What did Pope John Paul do? Well, to punish him, he took his bishopric away from him. Cardinal Law, you're no longer a bishop. But he's still a cardinal, which is a bigger deal than being a bishop. And then he moved him from Boston, Massachusetts, to the Vatican. Guess what the United States doesn't have with the Vatican? An extradition treaty. So on the off chance that some prosecutor in the state of Massachusetts might have been willing to commit career suicide and prosecute the cardinal for accessory after the fact, before the fact, during the fact, whatever, yeah, good luck, pal. You can't get him back from the Vatican. So if you're a cradle Catholic and all your life you've been hearing, no, the Roman Catholic Church was ordained by the Lord Jesus Christ himself when he told Peter, upon this rock I will build my church. And you've ignored the Protestants saying, well, that might be taken out of context. Look at the fruit of one pope after another. That's all. 501-401-1011 if you want to sound off and talk back. I got to share some more stuff with you. Megyn Kelly bent my brain a few days ago, and I didn't get to this Friday, so producer Tommy has saved it. Let's go, if we can, let's go to Megyn Kelly, cut one, please.
At 79 years old to sit in there in that situation room when Bibi Netanyahu, who was seated as an equal. Yeah. Trump didn't even sit at the head of the table. Trump sat at the side of the table and Bibi was across from him as an equal.
Look, I've been watching news reports before there was even internet video, going back to at least Ronald Reagan in the 80s. And whenever there's some kind of cabinet meeting or some kind of, a lot of times when they'll have a foreign head of state in, the president, whoever it is, Trump, Biden, Obama, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, George H.W., Reagan, whoever it is. It'll be kind of like a regular cabinet meeting. And guess where the president always sits, going back for at least 40 years? In the middle of the table. Because you got this long table in what looks like a conference room, except, of course, it's in the White House. And if you're sitting at the head of the table, people aren't going to be able to hear you down the other end. The president always sits in the middle. And how long has she been, was she a reporter on Fox News and she doesn't know? The president sits in the middle of the cotton picking table? How stupid is she? She's willing to just put it out there. It reminds me of when she said a few months ago, she praised to Charlie Kirk all the time. And she was about to go pray the rosary, as virtually all Catholic. No, wait. Don't get it wrong, Doc. She was about to go pray the rosary, as virtually all Christians do. And I said, well, now, wait a minute. You got Roman Catholics who pray the rosary and think that's a wonderful thing. You got Protestants, obviously, who don't and think that's not a wonderful thing. But neither the Roman Catholics or the Protestants think that virtually all Christians pray the rosary. How stupid is Megyn Kelly? Well, you can call it rhetorical if you want, but I'm serious. Megyn Kelly is stupid. Cut two, please.
What led him to sit there and buy what that guy was selling hook, line, and sinker when every other president was able to see through that liar?
Oh! Did you catch the implication there? She just told you that Obama and Biden were much better than Trump. She was always a lib. When she left the Fox News channel, because NBC offered her more money and she's going to do host Today's Show, Hour 3. Oh, she was just talking about how wonderful it is. These transgender kids getting these surgeries, getting these body parts lopped off. Oh, yeah, that's great because that's who they really are. Come on, man. That's your Megyn Kelly out there. It's just remarkable how she was able to put on a facade of actually being a patriotic American for all those years at Fox. Just remarkable. All right, 501-401-1011 if you want to sound off and talk back. More coming up straight ahead as the Doc Washer Show continues. 101.1, The Answer. 101.1, The Answer, Doc Washburn Show continues, where you can sound off and talk back at 501-401-1011. I can't believe we got this far into the show, and we haven't had a chance to get to the Michael Atkinson stuff coming out. And you're like, who's Michael Atkinson? And that is part of the problem. Office of the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has retrieved, reviewed, declassified, and forced the release of internal background documents related to the intelligence community's collaborative effort to impeach President Trump in 2019. This is over the conservativetreehouse.com, but everybody's got it. Everybody is worth their salt today. So the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, or HPSCI, wants to take political credit for the release. However, the HPSCI was forced in this position by the diligent work of Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. Without DNI Gabbard, these documents would never have seen sunlight. This type of public information release is exactly why DNI Tulsi Gabbard has been targeted by friend and foe alike. And so here is the official statement from Chairman Rick Crawford of Arkansas, of the Intel Committee. Today, the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence released 2 declassified transcripts from 2019 hearings with the former Intelligence Community Inspector General Michael Atkinson following a security review from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. The committee received the declassified transcripts from the ODNI the evening of Friday, April 10th, 2026. These transcripts are from 2 hearings held to examine Atkinson's role in an alleged whistleblower complaint, which ultimately led to Democrats' first impeachment efforts against President Trump, December 2019. Now, Conservative Treehouse says, looking closely, the information in these 3 documents makes it clear why the House Intel Committee never wanted them released. Both current and former members, including Republicans, are tied to a pattern of willful blindness, knowing the details, yet choosing to stay silent for months and even years afterwards. Former chairman of the Intel Committee, then ranking member Devin Nunes, was a participant in the testimony. Former Intel Committee member, now CIA Director John Ratcliffe, was a participant in the testimony. Former Intel Committee staff, now FBI Director Kash Patel, was a participant in the testimony. Think about it. Principal players. The National Security Council leaker was Alexander Vindman. The CIA so-called whistleblower was Eric Ciaramella. The Intel Community Inspector General was Michael Atkinson. There's a lot of information to review, as the documents include the CIA complaint from Ciaramella and subsequent investigation from the Intel Committee Inspector General Atkinson, the first interview of Atkinson by the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, dated September 19th, 2019. The second interview of Intel Community Inspector General Atkinson, dated October 4th, 2019. In total, there are about 450 pages of documents and transcripts to read and review. The story they tell is remarkable, as it outlines how internal people within the various intelligence agencies of the United States government collaborated and used their positions of responsibility to target a sitting president for impeachment and removal. In short, in addition to all the Spygate surveillance and Russiagate wrongdoing, these documents highlight the real and actionable activity by the U.S. intelligence community to work collaborative with Congress during their targeting of President Trump. Do not lose sight of the forest while surrounded by the details of the trees. He says, I'll share much more detail about what evidence the documents show and put that detail into the context of what it means. Unfortunately, there are some alarming realizations about how our government operates and the false entities within it who claim a position to fight against the corruption while keeping their mouth shut about specific evidence of corruption. Much more will follow, but right now, I need to pray a little bit and maybe go for a walk. Please begin. Oh, I hope he's got security. Please begin to read the releases and share your thoughts in the comments below. There are more documents that need to surface, more stuff that I will never relent from locating and finding methods to bring it out. In the interim, thank you to Tulsi Gabbard for the painful truth we all need to absorb. Well, I got to tell you, something that he's missing here, I think, is that Rick Crawford, I believe, has been doing the yeoman's work of trying to get all of this out. Rick Crawford is the guy who wrote an open letter to the president last summer, begging him to get the House Intel Committee's own reports on Russiagate from 2018 out, that President Trump's CIA director, John Ratcliffe, had been sitting on. The CIA had been sitting on it for 8 years, including CIA director John Ratcliffe. So I got to give credit to Rick Crawford on that. All right. Oh, I think we got time for maybe one more clip here. Trump tells Maria Bartiromo why we hit Iran. Can we do that one real quick? Roll it.
And this is a key point, Mr. President. For those people out there who have not been following it as closely, can you explain to those people why it was critical for the United States to go into Iran? Can you articulate what was behind that move that was so important for the U.S. to go into Iran?
Yeah, so easy. The easiest question you've asked me so far. They can't have nuclear weapons. They have nuclear. They want to enrich what they have. They want to enrich more. As you know, we knocked out with the B-2 bombers. Had we not knocked that out, they would have had a nuclear weapon within 1 month after we knocked out. In other words, had the B-2s, those beautiful B-2 bombers, totally obliterated their 3 sites. They have 3 sites. And they are now deep in the earth with, tons of rock. Now, that material should be gotten, but we have cameras on it. We have satellites with Space Force. That was one of my beauties, Space Force. So important. But we're watching those. We're watching every single aspect of that area. They can't move without us knowing exactly what's going on. But it's deep down, and it takes a long time to get it out. It's an amazing attack.
There you have it. Breaking news. 2 people were killed in a shooting Monday afternoon at Elko Regional Airport in Nevada. Elko police said the airport was closed to all traffic as officers investigated what they described as an active shooter situation. Report around 12:30 Mountain Time. Shooting resulted in 2 deaths from gunshot wounds. I'm Doc Washburn, the great Dave Elsick. Up at 7:06 in the morning. We'll see you tomorrow at 4:06, God willing, 101.1 The Answer.